Hey guys, okay, quick recording, and this is not being done under ideal circumstances. As you can see, I am not in my usual setup. I don't even have this freaking mic working. I don't know why, but for some strange reason, my freaking capture software is not picking up on this mic, so now you're hearing me through the webcam mic, which is not ideal, but it's what I have. But this is what we're going to be working with as far as the unboxing that I promised. It's not live, but you'll at least see a reaction. Well, a reaction to at least one box. Because there were actually 3 boxes, but I've already opened up 2 of them. Sorry. But you'll still get, my early impressions on them anyway, so I will start on in order. So the first one we got here from LK Chen, and it's this piece right here. Now you guys might automatically recognize this because this is a Flying Phoenix. You might be going, well, I mean, you already have a Flying Phoenix. You already sent a Flying Phoenix. What's the big deal? Well, this has been somewhat redesigned. For the most part, it's the same sword, but it's not. For one thing, the scabbard's been changed. You will notice that it has a much slimmer profile now, which gives it a somewhat more elegant look, which I do like. The paintwork on the scabbard is now a lot more delicate looking and a bit more detailed at the same time. It's no longer just red. Now they've added some yellow highlights to it, and just added these extra finer, these thinner lines, finer lines, just finer detail work that I really like as well. The sword hanger is pretty much the same. Same thing with the handguard, it's pretty much the same. The design of the hilt, again, pretty much the same, though I do notice that they kind of choked up a little bit more on here. However, the pommel has been completely redesigned. It's thicker now. It's no longer just that kind of thin, sort of saucer that they stuck on there. Now, they've made it thicker and they've added that really cool extra design to the end of it. And I really do like that. One thing that they changed on this that I am kind of on is the end cap of the scabbard, the bottom part. It looks like they just went with straight wood this time, and I don't know why they did that. Well, okay, I got an idea of why they did that. I'm thinking it's probably more authentic. It might be to cut costs as well, which I can understand. But I'm thinking it's a bit more authentic because I have seen certain earlier, I've seen pictures of museum pieces of Han Dynasty swords where the end cap was wood rather than brass or bronze or whatever they used back then. These are obviously a brass, but back then I think they used bronze. But it probably fits more with the kind of utilitarian design that the Flying Phoenix is supposed to have. Like, this is supposed to be kind of like, your typical foot soldiers jian or straight sword, or possibly like, a typical swordsman. So, it wouldn't be as fancy. But I kind of like the brass, end cap, because for one thing, I mean, if you're going to be resting this on the ground or tapping the ground, obviously it's going to last longer than the wood, right? But, I mean, for the most part, it, it looks well put together. It's still holding up. But I know sooner or later this is going to get scratched and stuff, and this was probably not going to look as pretty. But, hey, what can you do? The other interesting thing about this, and I'm going to be going into this in more detail when I do an actual comparison review, but for now I can kind of touch on it, is the sword itself. For the most part, it's still the Flying Phoenix. It still, feels good in the hand. It still has a nice balance to it and all that. But there's one key difference. This one's heavier by over 100 grams. I'm serious. The other Flying Phoenix was around 660 something grams, and this one's at 790 grams. That's noticeable. You do feel the difference in the hand. I mean, it's not like so heavy that you're like, what the fuck? It's still quite light for a gen. It's still under 2 pounds, but it makes me wonder, why did they go with it being heavier? Maybe they wanted this to be an even more authoritative cutter than it is already. Like, I can tell you, the Flying Phoenix was already pretty good at cutting, but with this added extra weight, it's definitely going to get the job done. I mean, there's no doubt now. But I'm not too sure why they decided to make it. They'll tell me, I'm sure, why they decided to make it heavier, but it's definitely heavier. I do plan on doing a comparison, like a straight up comparison review, but for now I'll simply say it's the Flying Phoenix. Just slightly heavier and with a more elegant, slimmer profile now with this particular scabbard. Now we go into the other box that I opened, and this was quite a surprise. It's weird because it wasn't a surprise, but it was a surprise. And that's this one right here. This one's called the Scarlet Sunset, which, considering the red of the wood, it seems quite apt. And right away, I was really shocked by this. Now, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. I kind of knew this was coming out months in advance, but it did not come out the way I expected it to. I honestly thought when this was announced that this was going to have similar dimensions to the Flying Phoenix. And by that, I meant that I thought that the blade, at the very least, was going to be like a similar blade in width, you know, from the base of the blade to the tip. And I just simply thought that the only major difference were going to be the fittings, you know, the hand guard, you know, the hilt, and so on and so forth. And that's not really what I got. You may have remembered my reaction to the Soaring Sky, which you can see back there, I think. And I still plan, I gotta hurry up with the review for this. This is yielding some interesting results in my tests, by the way. And I'm beginning to really get a soft spot for this one, even though this also wasn't what I expected it to be. And it seems I'm seeing a trend now with these kind of slim profiles for the scabbards for these, because ever since this came out, now the Flying Phoenix is having the same thing, and now we're seeing it with this one, which is supposed to be a Jin Dynasty sword. Now, I remember when this came out, I'm like, I thought this was going to be wider, and this, I called this the needle, because it's like, wait a minute, this is a much thinner profile, what the hell, you know? And then I saw this on the LKHN website, and I saw the dimensions for it, and I immediately was like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me, because I didn't think they were going to get any thinner than that. And then I saw this, and oh boy. Yeah. I mean, wow. Now this is the needle. Not that I can't call that one the needle anymore. Maybe I still can. I don't know. But this is definitely the needle. What are you guys doing to me? I mean, I have been arguing for a while now that the Jen is not a rapier. And I still stand by that, but now I'm holding this, and it's like, you guys are really making me have to fight for that point, aren't you? This is pretty much a rapier blade. I mean, it's your typical rapier blade. I can't fight that anymore. Like, look at this. Now, before you guys really start laughing at me, I know you guys already are, I will say this. This is supposed to be a blade from the Jin Dynasty. And there are no surviving pieces left, as far as we know. There have been no Jin surviving pieces still around from that time period. So in the construction of this particular sword, which is supposed to be from the Jin Dynasty, all they've really had to go on, as far as I know, are paintings and drawings. And while the drawings are pretty lifelike, and you know, you can see like the proportions of the body, the hands, the head, and all that, they seem to be pretty apt. And one other thing we have noticed with those drawings of these people holding these swords are how thin these swords seem to be drawn, like almost like thin little sticks. So I guess in looking at those, they're like, well, I guess we have to go with a super thin profile for the sword itself, because that's the way they were done in the drawing, so we've got to make a sword look like that. And I guess I can't fault them for that if they're trying to make it as realistic as possible. But it makes me wonder, like, do we have any, like, writings, any ancient Chinese writings talking about how these swords were made and what their dimensions probably were average-wise, if they also say that these were really, really thin, then I have a lot of questions as to why did it go from something like this to something like this. And the only thing I can think of right now off the top of my head, and I want some confirmation on it, is that this, whoop, don't even think about it, you. Don't fall down. Come on. I don't need you to get damaged. The only thing I can think of is that these are probably dress swords. I'm pretty sure some of you guys have heard the whole thing about the whole debate between there are two types of gen, the scholar version and the warriors version. And I've kind of always taken that with a bit of a grain of salt, and a bigger grain of salt as the years went on and I really started researching these things. And I began to realize that really, like, especially when it came to like a gen that you use to fight with, that there really weren't, like, yes, there were swords that people just wore, and it would be a little bit like overdone. Like they would have, you know, the really crazy looking fittings with all the extra designs and jewels and jade hilts and fancy overlong tassels and things like that. And those really were not made to fight with. That's where I say I have a bit of a grain of salt with some of these, because it's like there was two types, the scholarly gen and the warriors gen. And the scholarly gen, you could still fight with it, but it's like, no. From the overdone ones I've seen, you ain't fighting with those. Like, it's just, no. If it was one made for fighting, then it was made for fighting. But looking at these and thinking of the drawings that I've seen where these guys are wearing their swords all fashionably and all that, and the fact that these guys look more like scholars or poets than actual swordsmen, it's making me wonder if that's what these are. If these are the actual scholarly gen that were worn during a time period where they were kind of transitioning from gen to Dao anyway, and these gen were seen more as symbols of a certain type of character, a certain type of national character that they kind of wanted to invoke or embody. So these things were kind of worn more as a symbol than anything else. That's probably what these are. That's what I'm beginning to think that these are. I could be wrong. Maybe these were meant to be fought with and be overly thin, and like they were like for gentlemen's duels or whatever. But yeah, I'm thinking that, you know, these were probably made more for status than for fighting, but I could be wrong. I'm going to be asking some questions, and I'm going to be looking into it before I do the review on this. But I am kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe it's that thin. I'm still planning on putting this thing through its paces. I'm going to be doing some cutting tests. I'm going to be doing some thrusting. I am pretty sure this will do quite well thrust-wise. But considering how light this is, I'm going to be really shocked to see this thing really split through objects. I'm not expecting this to cut that well. I'm expecting it to cut. I'm expecting it to do some damage, but we'll see. I got to put this thing through its paces. This thing just showed up at the house yesterday. So, actually, no, the day before. Showed up the day before yesterday. So, but now that leads us to this box. This box is special. Not saying that these aren't special. They are. LK Chen makes some really nice swords. That company, I still think they make really nice swords, even if they aren't exactly what I expect. This one's special because it's not from LK Chen. That's from someplace else. And I've been waiting for this one since the end of May, beginning of August. Some of you guys might have been smart enough to have already guessed what's in this box. For those of you who haven't guessed, well, you're in for a nice surprise. So let's crack this sucker open, shall we? Now, once again, I'm using this really nice knife. I got this knife as a gift from Skull. It's a really interesting blade. I haven't really seen a knife like this before, where like the shape of the handle and kind of like that leaf shape of the blade and how the blade is positioned. I haven't really seen one like this, but I really like it. I think it's rather cool. And it's quite sharp. So I've got to watch myself for that. You know, another thing that kind of amuses me about the way this box was packaged? When I used to send swords out, I packaged them with the exact same box, the exact same way, with the exact same type of label. So it's kind of interesting now receiving a box like this. And there's a box within a box. And not a styrofoam box. It's a box within a, but the sword's already coming out. So I guess I should just let it slide and reveal it, huh? I'm going to put the knife away so I don't accidentally hurt myself with it. Ooh, nice little scabbard, too. I really like that piece. Really nice one. But, I'm going to put this here. So it was, this box was in that box. And this was in this box. But it slid out of this box, so. And it was nicely packaged. I like the fact that they got the little kind of styrofoam thing around here to kind of keep it stable. And in here, yes, I'm sure you guys recognize what this is. I am quite certain you guys recognize what this is. This is the Scott Rodell Hanwei cutting sword. Or is it the Hanwei Scott Rodell cutting gin? Whatever. You know what it is. It's got those words in it. It's in its title. I've been waiting for this one for a while. I've always wanted to own it. Finally got a chance to own it. And it was sent to me by the man himself, actually. I was lucky enough a while back to actually have a phone conversation with the man. And he's quite interesting to talk to and quite knowledgeable on the subject of Chinese swordsmanship. We had a really nice conversation, and I'm hoping to get another nice conversation with him again sometime in the future. We shall see. But it was directly through him that I asked if I could order one, considering that, you know, other places I was seeing they were selling it for quite higher price, while he was selling it at a much fairer price. And he told me that he was out, but he was expecting another shipment, and I immediately pre-ordered for one of those in that new shipment, and it finally came in. And so right away, oh man, I really should have brought the other one down here. I should have brought the Gale Wind down here for immediate comparison, but I have the Cedar Sword one over there, the affordable cutting gen, so I guess we can compare that. But I could tell you right away, I'm seeing some interesting differences. Like the fact that the wrap here is not a cloth wrap, it's not a cotton wrap. This feels like leather. I'm pretty sure this is leather, and I can see the ray skin that's showing through here as well. And I don't want to ruin the wrapping, but I just want to see underneath. Yeah, it's looking like the ray skin is all the way around the handle. Like it completely covers the inside, which I don't think the others can say the same if they even have that. Like the Cedar Sword one over there, I'm pretty sure doesn't even have that. And while I have not fully checked the Gale Wind, I am not certain if they have a complete ray skin wrapping like this one does. Handguard is somewhat similar, but not quite, and it's a little bit smaller, but it is made with a mild steel, just like the other one is. And now it's time to reveal the blade. These feel similar, actually. Huh. That same kind of perfect balance. Like, you know, I remember when I picked up the other one and I held it with the scabbard still in, I'm like, oh my God, this feels so light. And then I pulled it out, I'm like, whoa, I'm getting the same feeling from this. Very similar feel. I'm gonna put this back in the scabbard, and I want to see, yeah, that same similar kind of like perfect poise in there. And I'm getting that from this too. Same feeling. Same feeling. I will say that the other one, the Gale Wind, does have a bit of a nicer polish. Because the other one has a bit more of a closer, almost a mirror polish. This one is a more utilitarian polish. Not that that's a bad thing, considering that this is made for, again, this is made for practice. Like this was meant for use, for utilitarian use, for a lot of cutting practice, for, you know, your form practice, whatever. So, you know, you don't really need like a mirror polish on something like this, nor would I necessarily advise it. It's sharp. Mm-hmm. But I'm giving it the thumb test. Oh yeah, it's biting right into that thumbnail. I really like the balance on this. Like, it's just like wherever I want to put this blade, that's where it's going. Wow. Wow. I also like I mean, the handle is a little on the long side, but not two-hand. Like, yeah, you could put two hands on this, but not like if I'm putting my hands where the hands are supposed to be, then yeah, there really isn't much space in between. This was meant to be used one-handed perfectly. It ain't like the other one. Like, in fact, it's time for us to pull the seal sword one out, which I still like, but it's already apparent where the quality is. Like, let's compare these two. Right away. Whoop! Gotta move this chair aside. So if we look at these two, and I'm gonna like put them as close as possible, you can already see that this here has a much longer handle. And the reason why they specifically told me that this has that longer handle to help with the balance, which that makes me kind of looking a little askance at it then, because this is like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be a one-handed sword. You mean to tell me you have such a hard time with balancing one-handed sword that you have to give it a two-handed hilt, or sort of like a bastard hilt? Like, that's, no. It is a nice mirror polish though on this one. Utilitarian, and the steel, I do like the fact that this particular one, this one still has a nice balance to it. I think the Scott Rodell one is a little better balanced. Let me see where this one is. This is about right there. Come on. Come on. I'd say it's about 1, 2, 3, almost 4 inches from the handguard. I'm eyeballing it. I got it on the, look at the freaking review. I got the stats there. But I'm seeing the balance point there. And I'm going to put this one aside. Now, this beauty, man. God, I love how this feels. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. That feels good. It's about the same. I'm not having a hard time finding. I just found the spot immediately. Just went right there. Right there. Boom. Maybe slightly more forward, but not by much. Like a quarter inch? Something like that. Of course, I'm going to be measuring this more precisely later when I do an actual review. And then, of course, we're going to have to do a comparison between this, the Gale Wind, and the affordable cutting gen, and to really, like, test these suckers out. But already, I am liking this. Though I'm noticing a little bit of clicking. What's that? That's not good. Why am I hearing that? It's a little bit of a wobble. Though there is a nut in there, so I could probably tighten it up. It's not like the Gale Wind, though. And the Gale Wind and the Cedar Sword, they kind of have like that nut right there, so you can easily just grab a wrench and just tighten it and you're done. This one, it's recessed. See that? No, it fell. But it's fine. It fell right in the carpet. It's fine. I knew something was going to fall. But yeah, you see in here? See, it's recessed. So I probably can get like an Allen wrench or something and then just get it in there and then tighten it up that way. It's not like too wobbly, but there's a little bit. Like, if I go like this, there's nothing. But if I'm going like that, then I can feel it. Probably got loose during shipping, but it's not horribly so. Like, it's not like I can... Yeah, now it's not really moving. It's really more down here, I think. Feels good in the hand. Not just the balance, but the wrap. The leather wrap feels really nice. And again, this thing looks sharp as hell. It felt sharp as hell. Let's test it. Let me see if I can find some paper. Be right back. Okay, so we're going to slice this up, because I don't need this. And we're going to like test this sucker out. All right, so. Now, one thing I should say, however, okay, well, it's definitely paper cutting sharp. I should say, however, that you don't necessarily need a sword to be paper cutting sharp for it to be sharp enough to cut through targets. I think the whole paper cutting thing is a bit overblown. Like, that one just cut paper there, but now I'm having a little bit of a hard time, but it could just be me too. It's not cutting as neatly, but it's still cut. So, I mean, you saw that first part. Actually, you know what I really want to test out? I'm going to put this one back. And I want to test out this little bastard. This one right here. I got it. I need to know. I need to know. I mean, I know LK tend to make their swords ridiculously sharp to begin with. But with this thin little thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided, nah, this thing really wasn't meant to, you know, cut like that. So let's find out. No, it's still sliced in. Huh. Yeah, it's still freaking sharp. Yeah, oh yeah, and it's got the, yeah, ow, wow. Whew. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure if I, like, you know, did one of my gliding cuts against someone's neck, it wouldn't end well. Yeah. This is still dangerous. It's just so dainty. This is, I really feel like this is like a dress sword. Like, out of all the Chinese weapons I own, this is the one that you'd wear with your nice threads. You know, I am a nobleman. You know, I am someone of caliber. You know, woman. I'm just not just men, women. You know, are into sword play too. I could see, like, you know, this particular piece, especially with the whole bird motif on, you know, the fittings, and then you got, of course, that really cool crouching tiger motif on the grip right there. I could see, like, a woman who wanted to do, like, a really cool sword form doing it with this, and then she's got, like, you know, really cool, like, apparel on or something, and it, you know, this with it. It would work. It would definitely work. And of course, like, if a guy wants to have a more elegant look to his, you know, whole look before he does his form, it's just, man, that's super thin. I'm trying to think of what forms you would do with a piece like this. Obviously, it would be one with a lot more thrusting. I mean, yeah, you would do cuts, but it's like, it's super thin. I wouldn't necessarily do a Xingyi sword form with that. Wudon, but then again, Wudon looks good with just about any sword. Not Shaolin. Shaolin sword forms are very brisk. I don't know. I guess Wudon, like I said before, maybe some duckweed, you know, the duckweed sword would look interesting with the Scarlet Sunset. I don't know, it's weird. I have to think about it, like what would go on with that. But yeah, so these are the ones that I've gotten, and I got a lot of work to do as far as sword reviews. I'm so far really happy with this one. The way, look at that. Nice mild fittings. I like how the darker color of the steel fittings for the, you know, for the overall look here, compared to the steel of the blade. This is a very utilitarian looking sword. Considering that again, this was based on Ming and Qing designs, like, I would say this looks more like a Ming design. I really like how utilitarian this looks. You know, again, this was made for the practitioner who wanted to be able to cut targets as well as practice forms. Job done. You know, this is something that you know you could easily see on somebody's, like, you know, like a malicious sword, or, you know, like a good sword, well-trained swordsman, or even like an average, you know, soldier. Like, even though the average Ming soldier wouldn't be carrying this, they'd be carrying a doll. But this is, I like this. I really like this piece. Yes, he's coming down the stairs. I really like this. Compared, and again, we gotta have to make a comparison between this and the Gale Wind. If you want my immediate response, like, what do you think is better automatically? It's hard for me to say, because this and the Gale Wind, I could just kind of, just from holding this, even though I don't have the other one down here right now, but I remember how the other one feels, and I've been practicing with it recently. This feels very similar, unless, you know, my mind is way off, but it's similar. The balance is good. The edge seems really good. I get the feeling this is gonna, I mean, I've already seen this in action and how well it cuts, and Scott Rodell is very exacting when it comes to how he wants the swords to be. So I'm expecting really good things out of this. But it's interesting, I'm looking at, like, again, the finish on this, that kind of satin polish on this blade, and it reminds me of the old, again, from Hanwei. I used to own the old so-called Tai Chi Gen that Hanwei used to make, that they don't make anymore. Well, they still kind of make it, but they don't make it the same way they used to. Like they had their original like Tai Chi sword, and the one I had was the one that was black with the kind of silver steel, steel fittings. It looked silver and black, and it looked really cool. But it was made strictly for practice. Mine actually did have a bit of an edge to it though, and I actually kind of tightened up the fittings to make it more battle ready. Because the way it was made, it really wasn't made for combat. It was made for practice. But that blade had just enough of an edge, and I put more of an edge on the freaking thing so I could do some light cutting with it. And I really like reworked, like I kind of like stripped the parts, and I like fortified it so like it would handle, shock better. And that was again when the other sword that when Skull sent me that one Tongdao that got stolen, that sword got stolen too, which really pisses me off because I can't get that one back. Hanwei doesn't make it that way anymore. Granted, for good reason. The original version, the handle was a little too smooth. So if your hand sweated, then it was going to start moving around. And when they later on made their Adam Sujian, which is also made strictly for practice, the grooves in the handguard and the handle itself and the shape of the hilt gave you a better grip. So Hanwei was like, you know what, we might as well put that in the rest of our other training swords as well. So their so-called Tai Chi one also now has that Adam's Hue grip on it. But the original did not. And I had that original, so they sort of made it a special piece, and now it's gone. And that dude had better hope I never find him. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, the reason why I said all of that so I can say this. This has the exact same finish on the blade. The exact same finish. Like I'm looking at this and it takes me back. Like, wow, it's like it's almost the same blade. Almost. Because this blade is stouter. This blade was made for cutting. It's not that thin, flimsy blade that was on, well, I shouldn't say flimsy, but it was flimsier than this. Like this is like this was a blade that was meant to do some damage. The other one was blade enough. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't wushu steel. It wasn't like that. But it was still, a little on the thin side. This one's definitely not on the thin side. This is I'm going to do damage to extremities type. And I just like the overall utilitarian feel to this. Like this was a sword that's just like, I'm a sword. I'm here to cut things, and that's it. And I do admire that about it. I like swords like that. That's another reason why I like the Flying Phoenix. Because the Flying Phoenix, in my opinion, is sort of the same. It's a little bit more decorated, and even with the more elegant packages, this updated model, it's still at the end of the day a sword that's meant to do damage. It has a bit of a prettier finish, and it's folded steel and all that, but it's still meant to do some damage. And I like that in my swords. So that's pretty much where I got to end it because I'm not out of swords. The boxes have already been unboxed, but there is another box that I had opened that I wanted to quickly share with you guys. And it's got nothing to do with martial arts. Already opened it. So you're going to... But I just got to show it to you anyway. This is the other thing that I had gotten that's making me really happy. This right here. Pathfinder. Yes. The second edition. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be diving into this. I really like Pathfinder. I know a lot of other people, their main fantasy game to dive into is D&D, for good reason. That's the grandpappy of them all. But I've always been more partial to Pathfinder. And it's probably because my first D&D was actually 3.5. I know a lot of other people, it was Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which of course unofficially is 2.0. I didn't get into D&D until 3.5, and even then, rather sparingly. I didn't really play that many games with that system, but what I do remember is that I liked the 3.5 system, even though I know we talk about how convoluted the rules are, and we all make fun of, you pulling out the Bible of grappling, we know the jokes. But I did like the system. And so when I found out about Pathfinder, many people call it, is pretty much just D&D 3.75. I'm like, okay, let me check it out. And I liked Pathfinder more than D&D. And I like the expansions with it. And I like the fact that you can take D&D modules and stuff like that and just mold it into Pathfinder. So I'm like, fuck it, just play Pathfinder. And I still have a soft spot for first edition Pathfinder. I got pretty much everything for it now. And I love all the extra stuff they did. I mean, hell, one of my favorite fantasy classes to ever play is in Pathfinder, and that's the Magus class. That's like, to a T, what my ideal class to play in fantasy games. Yeah, it's just my jam. Like, you know, like standard, like if you want to play a fantasy type game, okay, is it Pathfinder? I'll jump right into that. Is it my overall favorite system to play? No, that probably would fall to GURPS. But as far as like typical fantasy setting, or the setting that if I wanted to make my own little fantasy game, default, I'd jump on the Pathfinder. That's just what I would do. But when I heard second edition was coming out, I was intrigued. I'm like, I wonder how they're going to make it better. And so far, from what I've seen, I have not looked through everything yet, but so far, I like the direction they're going into. They've streamlined it in ways, because it seems everybody these days wants to find a way to streamline the games to make it easier for people to go into. D&D's been trying to do that since 4th edition, and I really didn't like 4th edition. And I've seen 5th edition, and it's a decent system, and I can see why so many people like it, and I'm not saying it's bad, I've played it, but there are things they've done with it that I think they've streamlined certain things a little too much, in my opinion. There's certain directions they went to at 5 that has me going, oh, I don't know about that. But overall, it's all right. This one, so far from what I've seen, I think they've done a bit of a better job streamlining their game than I think D&D did with theirs. That's my preliminary thoughts on this. I still need to go through the rules and kind of look through it. But so far from what I've seen, I'm like, they're doing a lot of stuff that makes sense. I'm still wondering if if I'm going to miss some of the number crunching of first edition Pathfinder. Yes, I know it's a bit cumbersome, but there's just something about it that I still kind of like. I'm a little weird that way. But I will say that so far from what I'm seeing with this, I'm like, this isn't bad. I'd play this. Like, this isn't too bad. I shouldn't even say too bad. Like, this isn't bad at all. This is like, so far I haven't really seen anything that I need to complain about yet. Knowing me, I'll find something. But so far, I'm liking it. All I'm hoping is that they'll be able to add some of the older stuff back in, just improved. If they throw my Magus class back in, I'll really be freaking happy. But for now, you know, I'm happy to play a sorcerer or a ranger, which tend to be the other classes I like playing, or maybe even a rogue. I like what they've done with the rogue as well. And it's also rather interesting what they've done with races. They've sort of streamlined races as well. Like, they still have the classic ones, but they streamlined it at the same time. You know what? If you guys are really interested in hearing my opinions on this, because again, I don't talk about RPGs much on my channel, but then again, my channel is a channel where I talk about whatever the hell I want. It's not just a martial arts channel. Hell, it didn't even start out as a martial arts channel. It started out as me ranting about politics and philosophy channel. But even though I'm like, you know what, if I'm a nerd, so I'm going to talk about nerd things, and I'm going to talk about nerd stuff, and you can't do anything about it. But I'll be nice, because I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear me wax about a freaking rule book for about half an hour. So if you guys are interested in me giving my opinion on this, oh man, I can't wait. Can't wait to really dive into this. But if you want to hear my opinion of it, I'll happily put a video up. If you don't, no hard feelings. I'm not going to be offended, because, you know, some people just don't want to hear somebody ranting about it. But yeah, I'm glad I got this. I actually already had this and all the other core books and the bestiaries and all that in PDF form. Like, I already spent my money. I gave Pazio my money already for that, but this was actually part of the deal, and they finally sent it to me. So yeah, it's really cool looking at, you know, the rules and going through it and looking at the artwork. That's another thing I loved about Pathfinder. The official artwork for Pathfinder I have always liked. There's just something about the style that's just really appealed to me. I can't put my finger on it. It's just something that I really, really like. So yeah, and it's just nice going through it. So yeah, if you want to hear my opinion, I'll happily dive in. But I know many of you guys want to hear my opinion on those, and I'm already going to do it. What I'm planning, since I've already burnt too much time and my job and everything's kind of gotten in the way, I'm going to kind of Okay, I need to do a review on this. This is overdue. I understand that. So I'm going to try to hurry up and dive into it. Depending on how much time between now and then, I might cram this one in as well. It depends. Then I need to do a comparison video, which is going to be shorter, but I need to do a comparison with this and the original Flying Phoenix and kind of talk. I mean, there really isn't going to be too much to talk about because, quite frankly, they're the same sword. The only real difference is, again, the extra weight. It'd be interesting to see like why they added the weight. I got to ask them about that. Then we need to do a solo review of this, and then we need to do the video that I really couldn't wait to do, and that's comparing this and the other two similar ones and seeing what I think of all three of them, which one's the best, which one's better, you know, whatever. So that's my plan for the sword type stuff. That's what's on my list. So expect those. How soon? I couldn't tell you, but that's what's coming. That's what's definitely coming down the pipeline. And in between all of those, there's plenty of other stuff that I need to talk about as well. I'm going to probably touch on politics again. Probably going to touch on some gaming stuff again and some other stuff that's been in my mind. So you expect those in between. But, all right, enough of that. This has gone way longer than I wanted it to be for just a video where I unbox something and talk about the stuff I've already unboxed. But hopefully this will tide you guys over. And I hope it makes up for the fact that I didn't get to do the live stream. I still need to do a live stream of some sort at some point. So hopefully I'll get that going too. So then, hope you guys have had a good one. I hope you guys are still staying sane with this year. So I have something interesting to say about this year as well that might throw you guys off. But we'll see. But yeah, stay safe. Try to stay sane. Try to get your happiness wherever you guys can find it. And I'll catch you guys later.